My hands trembled slightly as Marcus Williams, the newly appointed fleet director, slammed my office door behind him. His face was red with frustration, and his voice carried that authoritative tone that usually made employees scramble. But when he demanded complete administrative access to the logistics platform I had built, I looked him straight in the eye and said something that would change everything. I calmly refused explaining that my limited liability company legally owned the platform. The moment those words left my mouth, I watched his expression shift from anger to complete shock. Marcus stood frozen for several seconds, processing what I had just told him. Then his anger erupted like a volcano. "What do you mean your company owns it?" he shouted, his voice echoing off the walls of my small office. "This is corporate property. You work here, Amy. Everything you build belongs to this company." I remained seated, my fingers interlaced calmly on my desk. 3 years of building and maintaining this system had taught me patience, but more importantly, it had taught me the value of documentation. "That's not how intellectual property law works, Marcus," I replied evenly. "I developed this platform before I was hired here, using my own equipment, my own time, and my own resources. The company entered into a licensing agreement with my LLC TechFlow Solutions to use the platform. You should really speak with legal about this." His face turned an even deeper shade of red. "I don't care about your little side business. I need access to manage this fleet properly, and you're going to give it to me right now." I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder containing copies of the original development contracts. The papers were crisp and organized, each page marked with yellow sticky notes highlighting the relevant clauses. "Marcus, I understand you're new here, but this isn't a negotiation. The platform belongs to TechFlow Solutions. The company pays licensing fees for usage rights, but ownership remains with my LLC. If you need access beyond what's already been granted to the logistics team, you'll need to negotiate with my company through proper legal channels." He snatched the folder from my hands, his eyes scanning the documents frantically. I watched as his expression changed from anger to confusion, then to something approaching panic. "This can't be right," he muttered, flipping through pages. "How can you own something that runs our entire fleet management system?" "Because I built it," I said simply. "Before I worked here, I was a freelance developer specializing in logistics software. When this company hired me as a systems analyst 3 years ago, they also signed a separate contract with my LLC for platform licensing. 2 different agreements, 2 different purposes." Marcus looked up from the papers, his jaw clenched. "We'll see about this. I'm taking this to HR immediately." As he stormed toward the door, I called after him. "Marcus, you might want to check the dates on those contracts before you do anything rash." He paused with his hand on the doorknob, turning back to face me with suspicious eyes. "What dates?" I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of knowledge that I had been carrying for months. "The licensing agreement. Check the expiration date." His face went pale as he frantically flipped through the documents again. I watched him find the page, watched his eyes widen as he read the fine print. "6 months ago," he whispered. "6 months ago," I confirmed. "The company has been using my platform without a valid license for half a year. Technically, that makes every transaction processed through the system a violation of my intellectual property rights." Marcus's hands were shaking now as he held the papers. But we process 60,000 shipments a month through this system. If you're right, then the company has been operating illegally for months, and I have grounds for a substantial lawsuit." I stood up from my chair, smoothing down my navy blue blazer. "Now, do you still want to demand access to my platform, or would you prefer to involve legal counsel like I originally suggested?" Within an hour of Marcus leaving my office, I received a call from Patricia Henderson, the Human Resources Director. Her voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the underlying tension. "Amy, I need you in conference room B immediately. We have some contract issues to discuss." When I arrived at this conference room, I found Patricia sitting across from Sarah Mitchell, the Executive Vice President of Operations. Sarah was a woman in her early 50s with silver-streaked hair and a reputation for cutting through corporate bureaucracy with surgical precision. "Please sit down, Amy," Sarah said, gesturing to the chair across from them. "Marcus has brought some concerning information to our attention regarding your platform ownership claims." I placed my laptop bag on the table and settled into the chair, maintaining eye contact with both women. "I'm happy to discuss this, but I should mention that I've contacted my attorney as a precautionary measure." Patricia's pen froze mid-note. "Your attorney?" "Given the potential legal implications of unauthorized software usage, my lawyer advised me to document all communications regarding this matter." I opened my laptop and pulled up a folder containing dozens of files. "I have complete records of every interaction between TechFlow Solutions and this company dating back 4 years. Sarah leaned forward, her expression shifting from skeptical to genuinely curious. 4 years, but you've only worked here for 3. "Correct. I was contracted to build the platform a full year before I was hired as an employee. The company needed a custom logistics solution, and they found my LLC through a business directory. The initial development took 8 months working entirely from my home office." I turned my laptop screen toward them, showing a detailed timeline with dates, payments, and contract milestones. The platform was completed and delivered in January of that year. 3 months later, when a systems analyst position opened up here, they offered me the job. I accepted, but made it clear that TechFlow Solutions would remain a separate entity. Patricia was scribbling notes furiously. "But surely the employment contract includes intellectual property clauses." "It does," I agreed. "For any work I create as an employee using company time and resources. But the logistics platform existed before my employment began. The licensing agreement is completely separate from my employment contract." Sarah studied the timeline on my screen, her expression growing more serious by the minute. "Show me the licensing terms." I clicked to another document highlighting the relevant sections. 5-year licensing agreement renewable by mutual consent. Annual licensing fee of $75,000 payable in quarterly installments. The company also agreed to cover hosting and maintenance costs. "And the expiration date?" Sarah asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. 6 months ago. The company missed the renewal deadline, and there's no automatic extension clause." The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Patricia and Sarah exchanged glances that spoke volumes about the gravity of the situation. "Amy," Sarah said finally, "I need you to help me understand something. If the licensing agreement expired, why have you continued maintaining the platform?" I had been dreading this question, but I knew it was coming. "Because I care about this company and the people who work here. The platform processes millions of dollars in logistics operations every month. Shutting it down without warning would have been catastrophic." Patricia looked up from her notes. "But legally, you could have done exactly that." "Yes," I admitted. "According to the contract terms, I could revoke access with 30 days written notice. But I kept hoping someone would notice the missed renewal and contact my LLC to discuss terms." Sarah closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. "How many people knew about this licensing arrangement?" "The original contracts were signed by Thomas Bradley, the former VP of Operations, and approved by legal. Copies should be in the corporate contract files." "Thomas retired 8 months ago," Patricia said quietly. "There was a transition period where several contracts fell through the cracks during the handover." I felt a wave of sympathy for both women. They were discovering that their company had been operating on borrowed time without even knowing it. "There's something else," I said, opening another file. "The platform has been updated and enhanced significantly over the past 3 years. Version tracking shows over 200 updates, patches, and feature additions. All of that development work was done on my own time without additional compensation from the company." Sarah's eyes widened. 200 updates? The platform you're using today is substantially different from what was originally delivered. It's faster, more secure, and handles 3 times the transaction volume it was designed for. According to the licensing agreement, major updates require separate licensing fees. Patricia's pen had stopped moving entirely. She was staring at me with an expression of dawning realization. Amy, what would it cost to license the current version of the platform going forward? I pulled up a spreadsheet I had prepared months ago, hoping someone would eventually ask this question. Given the expanded functionality and the volume of transactions being processed, fair market value for licensing would be approximately $200,000 annually. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah and Patricia sat motionless, processing the implications of what they had just learned. Finally, Sarah spoke. We need to involve legal immediately. This is way beyond HR's scope. As if summoned by her words, there was a knock on the conference room door. Marcus entered without waiting for permission, his face still flushed with anger. I've been thinking about this situation, he announced, and I believe Amy is trying to extort the company. I think we should terminate her employment and build our own replacement system. The room erupted in stunned silence. Patricia and Sarah stared at Marcus as if he had just suggested burning down the building. Marcus, Sarah said slowly, sit down. We need to talk. Marcus remained standing, his chest puffed out with false confidence. I've been researching this situation and I think Amy is bluffing. No employee would actually own something this critical to company operations. She's probably counting on us being too scared to call her bluff. I watched Sarah's expression harden into something approaching steel. Marcus, you clearly don't understand the legal implications of what you're suggesting. What I understand, Marcus shot back, is that we can't let employees hold the company hostage with ridiculous ownership claims. I say we cut off her access to the system immediately and see how quickly she changes her tune. Patricia looked mortified. Marcus, that's exactly the wrong approach. But Marcus was already pulling out his phone. I'm calling AT to have Amy's system access revoked. If she really owns this platform, she can prove it in court. My stomach clenched as I realized what he was about to do. Marcus, I strongly advise against that course of action. He ignored me, dialing the IT department. David, this is Marcus Williams, Fleet Director. I need you to immediately revoke all system access for Amy Chen. No, wait, Amy Thompson. Lock her out of everything. Sarah stood up abruptly. Marcus, hang up that phone right now. But it was too late. I could hear David Rodriguez, the IT security chief, responding through the speaker. I'm sorry, Marcus, but I can't do that without proper authorization. Amy has administrative privileges that were granted through executive approval. I'd need written authorization from Sarah or someone at her level. Marcus's face reddened further. Then get me that authorization. This woman is trying to steal company property. I closed my laptop calmly and stood up. Actually, Marcus, you've just made this situation much more serious. What are you talking about? He snapped. You just attempted to illegally block my access to my own intellectual property. That's not just breach of contract anymore. That's theft. Patricia was frantically typing notes on her tablet. Amy, please explain what you mean. I pulled out my smartphone and opened the TechFlow Solutions administrative app. The platform runs on servers that my LLC leases and maintains. The company accesses it through secure portals, but the underlying infrastructure belongs to TechFlow Solutions. What Marcus just tried to do is equivalent to breaking into my office and stealing my computer. Sarah was staring at Marcus with a look that could have frozen lava. Marcus, do you realize what you've just done? I tried to protect company assets, he protested. No, I said quietly. You tried to commit a federal crime. The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Marcus's face went from red to pale in the span of seconds. Federal crime, I nodded gravely. Unauthorized access to computer systems, attempted theft of intellectual property, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The FBI takes these things very seriously, especially when they involve interstate commerce. Sarah sank back into her chair, her face in her hands. This just keeps getting worse. Patricia was typing frantically. Amy, are you saying you're going to press federal charges? I sat back down, keeping my voice calm and professional. I'm saying that Marcus's attempted actions have escalated this from a civil contract dispute to potential criminal activity. My attorney will need to review the situation and advise me on the appropriate response. Marcus was looking around the room desperately, as if searching for support that clearly wasn't coming. This is insane. I was just trying to do my job. Your job, Sarah said coldly, is fleet management. Not intellectual property law, not IT security, and definitely not making unilateral decisions about legal matters you clearly don't understand. My phone buzzed with the text message. I glanced at it and felt my blood run cold. There's something else you all need to know, I said, holding up my phone. That was David from IT security. He's detected unauthorized access attempts on the platform servers. Patricia leaned forward. What kind of unauthorized access? I was already pulling up the security logs on my laptop. Someone has been trying to copy files from the platform database. The attempt started about 20 minutes ago. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Right after Marcus learned about the licensing situation, Marcus's face went white. You can't possibly think The access attempts are coming from your office computer, Marcus, I said, reading the security data. IP address matches your workstation exactly. The conference room erupted in chaos. Patricia was demanding explanations, Sarah was reaching for her phone, and Marcus was stammering denials that sounded increasingly desperate. I didn't try to hack anything, Marcus shouted. I don't even know how to hack. I continued scrolling through the security logs, my heart rate increasing as I discovered more troubling information. Marcus, I said quietly, the logs show you've been attempting to access restricted areas of the platform for the past 2 weeks, long before today's conversation about ownership. Sarah had her phone pressed to her ear. David, I need you in conference room B immediately. Bring the complete access logs for Marcus Williams' computer. Marcus slumped into a chair, his bravado completely deflated. I was just trying to understand how the system worked. As fleet director, I thought I should know. Know what exactly? I asked, my voice sharp with suspicion. Because these logs show you were specifically targeting the source code repositories and the customer database. Patricia was taking notes so quickly her pen was practically smoking. Amy, what would someone do with that information? I felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in my mind, forming a picture I didn't like at all. They would use it to build a competing platform, I said slowly, or to steal customer data for a rival company. Marcus's head snapped up. I would never. But his denial lacked conviction, and something in his expression told me I was on the right track. Sarah ended her phone call and fixed Marcus with a stare that could have cut glass. Marcus, I think you and I need to have a very serious conversation about your background and your intentions at this company. David Rodriguez arrived at that moment carrying a thick folder and wearing an expression of grave concern. Sarah, we have a problem, he said without preamble. The access attempts on Amy's platform are just the tip of the iceberg. Marcus has been copying files to external drives for the past month. David spread several printed reports across the conference table, each page marked with highlighted sections and sticky note annotations. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by the focused intensity of someone who had discovered a serious security breach. I've been tracking unusual activity on our network for weeks, David explained, pointing to a graph showing data transfer spikes. Large file downloads, database queries during off hours, attempts to access systems outside of normal job requirements. When Marcus called about revoking Amy's access, I decided to dig deeper. Sarah studied the reports with growing alarm. What exactly has been copied? Customer lists, shipping routes, vendor contracts, pricing structures. David flipped to another page. But the most concerning part is the pattern of access. Marcus has been systematically downloading information that would allow someone to replicate our entire logistics operation. Patricia was writing notes so rapidly her hand was cramping. Marcus, I need you to explain these activities immediately. Marcus had gone completely silent, staring at the table with the expression of someone whose world was collapsing around him. I felt a chill run down my spine as another piece of the puzzle fell into place. David, can you check where Marcus worked before joining this company? David was already pulling up a file on his tablet. Horizon Logistics Group based in Phoenix. He was their operations director for 6 years before coming here. The name hit me like a physical blow. I had heard of Horizon Logistics Group and not in a good way. Horizon isn't just a logistics company, I said, my voice tight with realization. They're a corporate acquisition firm. They buy struggling companies, strip their assets, and resell the pieces. Sarah's face went ashen. Are you suggesting Marcus is some kind of corporate spy? I was already researching on my laptop, pulling up financial news articles and SEC filings. It's worse than that. Horizon has been acquiring logistics companies across the Midwest for the past 2 years. They're building a monopoly. Patricia leaned over to read my screen. This article says they attempted a hostile takeover of Midwest Transport Solutions last year. And according to this SEC filing, I added, scrolling through financial documents, they're planning to go public within the next 18 months. They need a certain revenue threshold to qualify for their IPO. David was checking his security logs again, his expression growing more worried by the minute. Amy, how much of our business runs through your platform? I pulled up the analytics dashboard knowing the answer would be devastating. 68% of all shipments, 72% of revenue, and 81% of our highest value customers. The conference room fell silent as the implications sank in. Everyone was staring at Marcus, who remained slumped in his chair like a deflated balloon. Sarah spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. They sent you here to steal the platform. Marcus finally looked up, and I could see defeat in his eyes. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How is it supposed to happen? Patricia demanded. I was supposed to gain access to the system, document how it worked, and help Horizon build a replacement. Then they would make an acquisition offer that the company couldn't refuse. David was checking more security logs. But you couldn't get access because Amy's platform is privately owned. Marcus nodded miserably. When I realized the platform wasn't company property, I panicked. Horizon has been planning this acquisition for 2 years. If they can't get the platform, they can't complete their IPO, I finished. Because without our logistics volume, they won't meet the revenue requirements. Sarah was already reaching for her phone. I'm calling legal. This is industrial espionage. Wait, I said, holding up my hand. An idea was forming in my mind, dangerous but potentially brilliant. Before you call anyone, I need to ask Marcus something important. Everyone looked at me with curiosity and concern. Marcus, does Horizon know that you've been discovered? He shook his head. I was supposed to call my contact there after I got system access. Since that didn't happen. So as far as they know, everything is going according to plan. Patricia caught on immediately. Amy, what are you thinking? I looked around the table at their expectant faces, weighing my options carefully. What I was about to propose would be risky, but it might be the only way to protect the company and my platform. I'm thinking we set a trap. Sarah raised an eyebrow. What kind of trap? The kind that gets federal law enforcement involved in corporate espionage cases. The kind that protects this company from hostile takeovers and ensures my platform remains secure. David was already nodding, understanding the implications. You want to feed them false information. More than that, I said, my mind racing with possibilities. I want to make them think they're succeeding right up until the moment the FBI arrests them for attempted theft of trade secrets. Marcus looked terrified. You want me to help you? I want you to cooperate with federal authorities in exchange for leniency, because Marcus Industrial Espionage carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in federal prison and a $250,000 fine. The room erupted in whispered conversations as everyone processed the magnitude of what was being proposed. Sarah was consulting with Patricia. David was checking legal precedents on his tablet, and Marcus was staring at me with a mixture of fear and hope. Finally, Sarah spoke. "Amy, assuming we could arrange federal involvement, what would you need from us?" I closed my laptop and looked directly at her. "I need the company to officially recognize my ownership of the platform and negotiate a proper licensing agreement. Not just for legal protection, but because what I'm about to do will probably make Horizon very angry, and I need to know the company has my back." Patricia was already drafting notes. "What kind of licensing arrangement are you looking for?" "Partnership," I said simply. "Not just licensing fees, but profit sharing and equity participation. Because after we stop Horizon, this platform is going to be worth a lot more than $200,000 a year." Sarah smiled for the first time since the meeting began. "Amy, I think you and I need to discuss your future with this company. But first, let's call the FBI." Agent Lisa Martinez arrived at our offices 45 minutes later, accompanied by a younger agent carrying a briefcase full of recording equipment. Lisa was a woman in her early 40s, with sharp eyes and the kind of calm confidence that comes from years of investigating white-collar crime. "Before we go any further," Lisa said, settling into the conference room chair, "I need everyone to understand that what we're discussing is a federal investigation into potential crimes. Anything you say can and will be documented as evidence." Sarah nodded firmly. "We understand. We want Horizon stopped before they can damage this company or steal Amy's intellectual property." Lisa opened a digital recorder and placed it in the center of the table. "Marcus, I need you to understand your situation clearly. Based on the evidence presented, you're facing charges of computer fraud, wire fraud, theft of trade secrets, and conspiracy. However, your cooperation could significantly reduce those charges." Marcus was sweating despite the air conditioning. "What do you need me to do?" "Continue contact with Horizon exactly as planned. We'll provide you with specific information to share with them designed to make them believe their plan is working while actually building evidence of their criminal intent." David pulled up his security monitoring system. "Agent Martinez, I can provide real-time tracking of any access attempts on our systems. If Marcus gives them false access credentials, we'll know immediately when they try to use them." Lisa made notes on her tablet. "That's good. Amy, I need to understand the technical setup of your platform. If Horizon attempts unauthorized access, how will we prove criminal intent?" I opened my laptop and pulled up the platform's security architecture. The system logs every access attempt with timestamps, IP addresses, and detailed activity records. Any unauthorized access leaves a complete digital fingerprint. "Perfect. Here's what we're going to do." Lisa leaned forward, her voice taking on the tone of someone outlining a military operation. "Marcus will contact his Horizon supervisor and report that he's gained preliminary access to the platform. We'll create fake credentials that appear to work but actually trigger enhanced monitoring." Patricia was taking detailed notes. "What happens when they try to use the fake credentials? They'll be able to access a carefully prepared version of the platform that contains false information but appears completely legitimate. Every action they take will be recorded and traced back to Horizon's corporate network." Sarah looked impressed. "How long will this operation take?" "Based on similar cases, probably 2 to 3 weeks. Corporate espionage operations move quickly once they think they have access to the target systems." I was already thinking about the technical requirements. "I'll need to create a duplicate environment that looks exactly like the real platform but contains fake data. Customer information, shipping routes, everything needs to appear authentic." David nodded. "I can help with the networking setup. We'll route their access attempts through monitored connections that log everything." Lisa stood up and walked to the whiteboard, sketching out a timeline. "Here's how this will work. Today, Marcus contacts Horizon and reports limited success. Tomorrow he provides them with the fake credentials. By the end of the week, they should be attempting large-scale data extraction. And then, Patricia asked, and then we arrest them for federal crimes while they're in the middle of stealing what they think is your intellectual property. Marcus raised his hand tentatively. What happens to me after all this? Lisa consulted her notes. Assuming full cooperation and successful prosecution of the primary targets, you'd likely face probation and community service rather than prison time. But that cooperation has to be complete and convincing. I felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness about the plan. It was risky, but it offered the chance to not only protect my platform, but to expose Horizon's entire operation. Agent Martinez, I said, what if this backfires? What if they realize it's a trap? Then they'll stop their illegal activities and retreat, which still accomplishes our goal of protecting your platform. But based on my experience, corporate espionage operations are usually too invested to back down once they think they're close to success. Sarah was studying the timeline on the whiteboard. What do we tell the rest of the company? This investigation could take weeks. Minimal disclosure, Lisa replied. Only people in this room need to know about the federal involvement. Everyone else continues normal operations. David was already working on his tablet. I'll need to modify our security monitoring without alerting other IT staff. Can you give me federal authority to make those changes? Lisa nodded. I'll have the paperwork ready by tomorrow morning. This is officially a bureau investigation now. I looked around the table at the faces of people who had become my allies in this fight. A few hours ago, I was a systems analyst defending my intellectual property rights. Now I was part of a federal operation to stop corporate espionage. There's one more thing, I said, opening another file on my laptop. If we're going to do this, I want to make sure we get all of Horizon's operations, not just their attempt to steal my platform. Lisa raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I turned my laptop screen toward the group, showing a research document I had been compiling. I've been tracking Horizon's acquisition pattern. They've attempted this same type of corporate infiltration at least 4 other companies in the past 2 years. Sarah leaned forwards to read the screen. You think there are other victims? I think there are other ongoing operations. If Marcus can get information about Horizon's current targets, we might be able to stop multiple crimes in progress. Lisa was already reaching for her phone. I need to contact the task force coordinator. This could be much bigger than we initially thought. Marcus looked up from his miserable contemplation. You want me to spy on the people who sent me here to spy on you? I want you to help us stop them from destroying other companies the way they tried to destroy this one, I replied. This isn't just about my platform anymore. It's about stopping a pattern of corporate predation. Lisa ended her phone call and turned back to the group. The task force is very interested in expanding this investigation. Marcus, are you prepared to wear a wire when you meet with your Horizon contacts? Marcus swallowed hard but nodded. If it means staying out of federal prison, yes. Sarah smiled grimly. Then let's take these bastards down. 3 weeks later, I sat in the same conference room watching live feeds from FBI surveillance teams positioned outside Horizon Logistics Group's corporate headquarters in Phoenix. Agent Martinez had set up a command center in our building, complete with multiple computer monitors showing real-time data flows, audio feeds from Marcus's wire, and tracking information from the fake credentials we had provided. Target 1 is attempting large-scale database extraction, David reported from his monitoring station. They've been downloading files for 6 hours straight. Lisa was coordinating with agents in multiple cities through her headset. Copy that. Teams in Phoenix, Chicago, and Denver are standing by for simultaneous arrests. Sarah sat beside me, watching the operation unfold with fascination and obvious relief. Over the past 3 weeks, the company had negotiated a partnership agreement with TechFlow Solutions that exceeded even my most optimistic expectations. Instead of simple licensing fees, We had structured a deal that made my LLC a technology partner with substantial equity participation in the company's growth. Amy, your fake platform is incredibly convincing, Patricia commented, studying the data logs. They have no idea they're stealing worthless information. I couldn't help but smile at that. Creating the decoy environment had been one of the most challenging projects of my career. Every detail had to be perfect. Customer names that sounded real, but were entirely fictional shipping routes that made geographic sense, but led nowhere, financial data that appeared legitimate, but was completely fabricated. The real genius was making it look like they were succeeding gradually, I replied. Marcus has been feeding them incremental victories for weeks, making them think they were slowly gaining access to more valuable information. Marcus himself was currently sitting in a Horizon conference room in Phoenix, wearing a wire and participating in what his former colleagues thought was a planning meeting for the final data extraction. In reality, he was documenting their entire criminal operation for federal prosecutors. Agent Martinez's voice came through the speakers. All teams, Target 1 has just attempted to access the financial forecasting module. They're going for the complete package. I pulled up the real-time logs on my laptop, watching as Horizon's team tried to extract what they believed was our most sensitive business intelligence. In reality, they were downloading carefully crafted false projections that would be useless for any legitimate business purpose. This is almost too easy, David muttered, monitoring the network traffic. They're not even trying to hide their digital footprints anymore. That's the beauty of Agreed, Lisa replied through her headset. Once criminals think they're close to a big score, they often abandon caution. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message. She read it and her face broke into a wide grin. What is it? I asked. Message from Robert. Robert Chen was the company's CEO who had been briefed on the operation, but remained at arm's length to maintain plausible deniability. The board just approved the partnership agreement unanimously. TechFlow Solutions is now officially our technology development partner. I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. 3 weeks ago, I had been defending my basic property rights. Now I was a full partner in a growing company with the resources to expand my platform far beyond what I had ever imagined possible. Contact established with Target 2, came another voice through the speakers. This was Agent Parker leading the Chicago team. Subject is attempting to access the decoy customer database. Lisa consulted her tablet. Chicago Target is confirmed as Horizon's Senior Vice President of Acquisitions. This gives us direct evidence of executive-level involvement in the conspiracy. David highlighted another section of his monitoring display. Amy, they just tried to access the source code repository. That's attempt number 4 today. Perfect, I replied. Each attempt creates another count of attempted theft of trade secrets. Patricia was reviewing legal documents on her laptop. Our attorneys have confirmed that the evidence being gathered today will support both federal criminal charges and a substantial civil lawsuit. Horizon is going to face millions in penalties and damages. The radio crackled with Marcus's voice from Phoenix. They're asking me to provide direct database access now. Complete customer files, all shipping data, and financial projections for the next 2 years. Lisa keyed her microphone. Give them everything, Marcus. Let them dig their own graves. I watched the data transfer logs as Horizon's team began what they thought was the ultimate extraction of our business intelligence. Gigabytes of carefully crafted false information flowed through monitored connections, each byte creating additional evidence of their criminal intent. Movement at the Phoenix location, reported Agent Thompson. 3 suspects are carrying storage devices toward the parking garage. Lisa stood up, her voice taking on the crisp authority of someone coordinating a major arrest operation. All teams prepare for simultaneous execution. Targets are attempting to leave with stolen data. The next few minutes were a blur of radio chatter, computer alerts, and live video feeds showing federal agents moving into position around 3 different buildings in 3 different cities. Go, 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 Lisa commanded. On the monitors, we watched as FBI teams executed search warrants simultaneously at Horizon's corporate headquarters, their Chicago acquisition office, and a rental warehouse in Denver, where they had been storing equipment used for corporate infiltration operations. Marcus's wire picked up the moment of realization in the Phoenix conference room. "What the hell? Who are all these people with badges?" Agent Martinez's voice came through clearly. "FBI, everyone remain seated and keep your hands visible." I found myself holding my breath as I watched the culmination of 3 weeks of careful planning. On multiple screens, I could see Horizon executives being read their rights while agents seized computers, storage devices, and boxes of documents. "Target secured in Chicago," reported Agent Parker. "Subject was attempting to delete files when we entered. Denver team has secured the warehouse," came another report. Multiple computers and storage devices recovered, plus what appears to be espionage equipment targeting other companies. Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. "Amy, you did it. You stopped them." But I was focused on something else entirely. The monitoring logs were showing additional connection attempts from IP addresses that weren't part of Horizon's known network. "David," I called out, "are you seeing these anomalous access attempts?" He frowned at his display. "Yeah, those are coming from... Wait, that's interesting. Those IP addresses are registered to Meridian Capital Group." Lisa was instantly alert. "What's Meridian Capital Group?" I was already researching, my fingers flying across the keyboard. "Investment firm based in New York. Specializes in hostile acquisitions and corporate restructuring." "Oh no," Patricia breathed, reading over my shoulder. "They're Horizon's funding source." The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Horizon wasn't just attempting industrial espionage for their own benefit. They were gathering intelligence for a much larger financial consortium with the resources to acquire and dismantle dozens of companies. Lisa was already on her radio calling for expanded search warrants. This operation just got much bigger. As federal agents continued their arrests across multiple cities, I realized that what had started as a simple contract dispute had uncovered a massive corporate espionage network that threatened companies throughout the logistics industry. But more importantly, I had proven that sometimes standing up for your rights can lead to outcomes beyond your wildest imagination. "Agent Martinez," I said, watching the last of the Horizon executives being led away in handcuffs. "I think we're going to need a bigger investigation." 6 months after the FBI raids, I stood in the executive conference room of our newly expanded headquarters, looking out at a view that perfectly symbolized how dramatically everything had changed. Where once I had defended my platform from a hostile director in a cramped office, I now served as chief technology officer of a company that had grown by 40% and become a leader in logistics innovation. The partnership agreement between TechFlow Solutions and the company had evolved into something neither side had originally envisioned. Rather than simple licensing or even equity participation, we had created a hybrid model where my LLC maintained ownership of the core platform while jointly developing new technologies that benefited both entities. The arrangement had attracted attention from major investors who saw the value in combining established logistics operations with cutting-edge technology development. "The quarterly numbers are remarkable," Sarah announced to the assembled board members, clicking through a presentation on the large wall monitor. "Revenue is up 42% year over year, customer retention has improved to 96%, and our technology platform is now licensed to 12 other logistics companies across 6 states. Helen Morrison, one of our newest board members and a former federal prosecutor, nodded approvingly. "The legal settlements from the Horizon case certainly didn't hurt those numbers." The Horizon Logistics Group had pleaded guilty to 17 counts of corporate espionage, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Their executives received sentences ranging from 18 months to 4 years in federal prison, and the company was forced to pay over $8 million in restitution to their victims. More importantly, the investigation had uncovered similar operations targeting 23 other companies, leading to one of the largest corporate espionage prosecutions in federal history. Marcus Williams had testified for the prosecution and received a sentence of 1 year probation plus 500 hours of community service. His cooperation had been instrumental in mapping the full extent of Horizon's criminal network. In an unexpected turn, he had asked to serve his community service hours by helping small businesses improve their cybersecurity practices, essentially using his experience as a corporate spy to protect other companies from similar attacks. The really exciting development, I added to Sarah's presentation, is the patent portfolio we've been building. TechFlow Solutions now holds patents on 7 different logistics technologies that prevent the kind of corporate theft we experienced. We've made those patents available for free licensing to any company that commits to ethical business practices. Robert, our CEO, leaned forward with interest. How many companies have signed up for the ethical licensing program? 47 companies so far, representing approximately $200 million in annual logistics volume. We're creating an industry standard that makes it much harder for bad actors to operate. Patricia raised her hand from her seat at the far end of the table. Amy, can you tell us about the mentorship program you've been developing? I smiled, thinking about one of the most personally rewarding aspects of my new role. We've partnered with local universities and community colleges to provide internships and training for students interested in logistics technology. But more importantly, we're teaching them about intellectual property protection and ethical business practices. The program had grown out of my realization that many small developers and technology entrepreneurs lacked the legal knowledge to protect their innovations from predatory companies. By sharing my experience and providing practical education about contracts, licensing, and intellectual property law, we were helping to create a generation of technologists who understood their rights and knew how to defend them. The numbers on that program are impressive too, Helen added, consulting her tablet. 12 students have started their own technology companies in the past 6 months, and 3 of them have already secured significant client contracts. David Rodriguez, who had been promoted to Chief Information Security Officer, pulled up another slide showing our expanded security operations. We've also become something of a resource for law enforcement agencies investigating corporate espionage cases. Our monitoring and forensic capabilities helped solve 4 additional cases this year. I felt a deep sense of pride as I listened to the reports. What had started as a desperate defense of my intellectual property had grown into something that was making a positive difference for businesses and entrepreneurs throughout the region. Agent Lisa Martinez, who had become a good friend during the investigation, joined us via video conference from Washington, D.C. Amy, I wanted to update everyone on the federal task force outcomes, Lisa said through the conference room speakers. The Horizon investigation led to the creation of a permanent corporate espionage prevention unit within the FBI. Your platform's security architecture has become a model for other companies trying to protect their intellectual property. Sarah beamed with obvious pride. Lisa, can you tell us about the policy changes that resulted from this case? Absolutely. The Department of Justice has issued new guidelines for prosecuting corporate espionage cases, and several states have strengthened their trade secret protection laws. More importantly, there's pending federal legislation that would require companies to disclose any attempts to acquire intellectual property through potentially illegal means. I thought about how far we had all come since that confrontation in my small office. The experience had taught me that defending your principles often requires courage, but it can lead to outcomes that benefit far more people than yourself. Before we wrap up, I said, I want to share something personal about this whole experience. The room fell quiet as I gathered my thoughts. 6 months ago, I thought I was just protecting my platform from an aggressive manager. I never imagined that standing up for my rights would lead to exposing a major criminal conspiracy and creating opportunities for so many other people. I looked around the table at faces that had become not just colleagues but friends and allies in building something meaningful. The most important lesson I've learned is that innovation and ethics aren't just compatible, they're essential partners. When we protect intellectual property rights, support ethical business practices, and share knowledge with the next generation, we create an environment where everyone can succeed. Helen nodded thoughtfully. That's exactly the kind of leadership our industry needs. Patricia was taking notes as always, but she looked up with a smile. Amy, what's next for TechFlow Solutions and our partnership? I pulled up the final slide of my presentation showing a map of the United States with dozens of pins marking potential expansion locations. We're going national. The demand for ethical logistics technology has exceeded our most optimistic projections. Over the next 2 years, we plan to establish technology partnerships with logistics companies in 15 states, creating a network of businesses committed to innovation ethics and mutual support. Sarah stood up, her face glowing with excitement. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're looking at the future of American logistics technology. As the meeting concluded and people began filing out of the conference room, I remained standing by the window, reflecting on the journey that had brought us all to this point. In the parking lot below, I could see employees arriving for the evening shift, many of them working with technology that had grown out of my original platform, but had been enhanced through collaboration and shared expertise. My phone buzzed with a text message from a student in our mentorship program. Ms. Thompson, I just signed my first client. Thank you for teaching us to value our work and protect our rights. I smiled, realizing that the real victory wasn't just saving my platform or stopping a criminal conspiracy. The real victory was creating a model that other people could follow to protect their innovations and build ethical businesses. As I finally prepared to leave the conference room, I thought about how the confrontation with Marcus Williams had changed, not just my life, but the lives of everyone touched by our expanded operations. Sometimes the greatest challenges reveal hidden opportunities, and sometimes defending what's right leads to outcomes that benefit everyone involved. The future was bright, built on a foundation of innovation integrity and the simple principle that people should be able to protect and benefit from their creative work. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up for your rights in a workplace situation? What advice would you give to someone facing corporate pressure to give up their intellectual property? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story inspired you or you know someone who could benefit from hearing about workplace rights and intellectual property protection, please like this video and share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to back down when faced with injustice and corruption. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the greatest victories come from having the courage to say no when everyone expects you to say yes.